9th of November 2025, and this forthcoming Tuesday will be the 11th of November 2025, and it will be Remembrance Day. So today was officially Remembrance Sunday. And once again, I didn't really do anything to kind of remember those that have fallen and have served in the armed forces and are still serving today. Although I know there would have been a lot of people today who would have laid wreaths or took maybe a 2-minute silence to think about those that have fought for this country and even for other countries today, and also for the rest of the remaining week. I do apologise that you can't actually see me and you can only hear me. The main reason for that is because I now have a medical condition that is called intracranial hypertension. So my eyes, despite the hospital telling me that I'm okay, I'm still very light sensitive, and at this time of the day I tend to get a lot of headaches, and I have to take medication for that. So the lights are usually off just to basically allow my eyes to kind of rest. And I think sometimes, it's not always about what you can see, it's about what you can hear. But it's not just about what you can hear. Or, no, I'm not saying that right. It's not just about listening, but actually hearing what people are trying to say or put across. So one of the things that was mentioned about myself recently was that a lot of my YouTube videos on my account have been emphasized around renting within the private housing sector. And you're probably thinking, well, how is that relevant to Remembrance Sunday? How is that relevant to remembering November the 11th? I personally recently watched a gentleman online who is 100 years old and did fight in the Second World War. And right out of the mouth of babes, if you're familiar with that saying, hello, thank you for joining, he basically said, what did we fight for? He has lived for 100 years, and you've got to have respect for somebody that's lived that long and has fought within the Second World War. And he basically said, what was the point of me fighting? What was the point of me going to war, losing my family, losing my friends, losing my loved ones, for society and life to be the way it is today, and to not be what he wanted it to be or what he believed he was fighting for? And it just really made me sad to hear that. But at the same time, how can you not take something like that seriously or to heart when this person has lived for 100 years and they've seen everything? They will have probably seen more in their lifetime than I ever will, and I'm in my 40s. And the way it's relevant, I think, is because we're still living in a society, in a world where people are homeless. People are still fighting. There's always going to be a battlefield. There's always going to be a war. That is one of my favorite quotes from the movie that I watched called King Arthur. That has got Clive Owen in, who plays King Arthur, and Keira Knightley, who plays Guinevere. And the gentleman who plays Lancelot, his sidekick basically says to him, you are fighting for a world that will never exist. There will always be a battlefield. There will always be a war. And he even says to him, I will die in battle. And I want it to be a battle of my choosing. So if you've not seen the film King Arthur with Clive Owen in, then I would definitely recommend that you watch it. because, again, it is about a time in history that was very pivotal to Britain, where we're being invaded by the Saxons, and that is the thing that the movie focuses on. It's the enemy of my enemy now becomes my friend, or better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So in the film, it's a bit of a spoiler, the Roman legions, the Roman Sumerian knights who have been fighting for Rome for 15 years have to make a decision. Do we fight or do we run away? And they choose to fight, and they fight with the Woads, who they are classed as being on the other side of Adrian's wall and have been their enemy for the past 15 years. And now all of a sudden, because the Saxons are invading, they have to make a decision. And so they choose to fight together in unison. So it is a really good movie. I love that movie. It has a very strong conflict to what people are struggling with in society. It is about people still being pagan, but then being forced into Christianity by the Romans, who have obviously invaded Britain, took over Britain, and are in charge of Britain. But then at that point, whether it's historically correct, I can't comment, they choose to leave. The Saxons are invading, Rome's going back to Rome, we've had enough, goodbye. And all of the people that are left there, it's like, shit, what are we supposed to do? You know, we've just been governed by Rome for so long, and now we're getting invaded again by another culture, another country, another civilization is going to take over. What are we going to be left with? And so I can definitely feel for this gentleman who was on the TV this week saying, I'm 100 years old, I fought in the Second World War, what are we fighting for? What did I fight for? And I totally agree. I mean, I have been Section 21'd, but like most people within the UK, I was Section 21'd before it became illegal to do so. My landlord deliberately did everything they could to kind of follow the letter of the law, so to speak. I mean, I don't know how true that is. I've now got to go to court to see whether it's my Section 21's illegal or not. But he's Section 21 me, and I am officially going to be homeless before Christmas. And I'm thinking to myself, how many other people has this happened to in today's society? How many other people are going to be in the same situation as me, where you're not earning enough to own your own house or get a mortgage, you're barely earning enough to rent, and how many of you now have been Section 21'd and are having to beg, borrow, steal in order to survive? I think what upset me the most is how my landlord seems to have these rose-tinted glasses on, because they actually emailed me and said, we are Section 21ing you, you need to go to the council and they need to rehouse you. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, if the council of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, that's where I live, could rehouse me, why would I be renting your shithole? Why would I have gone to the Department of Work and Pensions and said, I need help paying my rent within the private housing sector. Can you support me? So that my landlord could then steal that money from the government, say that they're going to use it to renovate the property and maintain the property and comply with the laws that have been set in stone by the government to make sure that property is safe for people to rent, and then use it to go and get pissed in Ibiza. And so I'm kind of really pissed off that the private housing sector and the attitude of my landlord is, we're going to make you homeless. It's up to the council to rehouse you. Well, no, it isn't actually. If they can, they will. But the likelihood is they're not going to be able to. because I am probably one in 1,000 other people living in Nuneaton and Bedworth who needs a property to live in. And there is no way that I'm going to be rehoused by next year. I have applied for properties for 9 years solid, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Whenever I could send an email, a phone call to estate agents, to local councils, and the answer has come back, no, you're on benefits. We're not going to help you. We don't want to house you. We're not going to support you. And ever since universal credit kicked in, the way that society has looked at each other and has been treated is 100 times worse than what and how we treated each other before the Second World War. So when this gentleman came on TV saying, what did I fight for? Life was so much better before the Second World War. All I've seen ever since then is just not what I believed society would be like. It is so heartbreaking to hear that, because I have to agree. I mean, you know, you watch historical programs, you learn about history through your childhood, through schools. I'm not saying I want life to go back to where people are living it like in a workhouse, you know, and it, you know, and you're only getting bread and water and cheese if you're lucky to survive on. But at the same time, you know, society seems to have gone backwards in so many ways. I mean, the NHS, for example, one of the main reasons we got the NHS was because of the Second World War. And now that is all being asset stripped. Council properties, a lot of people blame Margaret Thatcher for that. They say the moment Margaret Thatcher brought in the right to buy, so basically once you're in a council house for so many years, you could then buy it and own it. Maybe that shouldn't have been a case. Maybe that should never have been allowed to have happened. But again, it enabled people to become homeowners. It enabled people to kind of claw their way out of poverty, which unfortunately hasn't happened now, certainly not in my lifetime. I mean, I'm 43 and I was quite lucky. My parents owned their house. My next door neighbour next door, his parents owned their house. Most people in my street were homeowners. But the moment they died, or the moment they decided to move out or leave the area, all of the properties now, apart from maybe 10 houses within the street where I grew up, are all HMOs. You do not know your neighbour anymore. You can't walk out your door and be like, hi, Joe, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm great. How are you? You all right? Do you need a cup of tea? You all right for milk? You all right for tea? You all right for sugar? Do you want to come round later for a cup of coffee? Do you want to go to the pub? You know, let's go to the social and have a beer or two. That no longer exists. So if that's the sort of thing this gentleman was talking about, where this is not the society we wanted, I totally agree. People, even with social media, I know I'm on YouTube now, I'm saying quick hi again to whoever's hanging in there listening to me. We are the most isolated species and the most isolated within society we can ever be now. Everyone blames COVID and says, oh, you know, when COVID hit, people started suffering more with mental health. People weren't able to leave their properties. People, you know, became more isolated. People were more dependent on, you know, social media to interact with one another. The sales of online shopping went through the roof. I disagree with that, to be honest. I think the only thing that COVID really did was rip off the Band-Aid that society have been trying to cover for an extremely long time. And it's like the potholes in the road. If you were to say that every single pothole that was in the road, which you're still waiting for your local council well, it wouldn't be council, it'd be county council, to tarmac over, not fix, they're never going to fix them, they're just going to tarmac over them, was to represent somebody with mental health within the UK, that would probably be a very good example. Yes, a lot more people were aware, became physically, mentally aware of how much their mental health had been fractured due to isolation during lockdown. But the fact that mental health is something that has never really been addressed and is still a taboo in today's society is heartbreaking. I mean, in the olden days, people are saying, oh, we didn't used to have kids with autism. Mental health never existed. Yes, it did. But you used to put people that were not normal or would not confide to society in places. A husband could say that his wife was mentally ill if she didn't do what he wanted. It didn't even have to be a doctor. It could just be a male member of the family. So that's where Bedlam comes from. When people came back from war, PTSD or shell shock was never recognised until later on in life. You know, men were branded as cowards. Oh, you're a coward, you've run away and all this. It's like, okay, you go sit in a trench then for 2 years of your life and have people fire bombs at you, and then you tell me that you haven't got PTSD. I have never been near a war. I've been really, really blessed. I'm lucky that, you know, that I have never ended up having to be put in that situation. And I would never wish that on anyone. So I think to sort of say mental health isn't an issue, it's never been an issue, it's only something that seems to have come out after COVID, is absolute bullshit. It's the fact that society doesn't want to admit that there is an issue and to address it. I don't believe in the whole less pills, more hugs. I think that's just bullshit. What I think needs to happen is things need to change, but that's not going to happen with the way society is currently being run. But I don't want to get into politics and be too political about this. But like I said, I mean, it is just heartbreaking to hear somebody say, I fought in the Second World War and this is what life has turned out to be. Like, he didn't say anything about, you know, oh, children today need to go back and need to start doing national service. He didn't say anything about how he felt society had failed or how it wasn't how he dreamed it would be. Just that this is not what I fought for. And that was a real strong message for somebody to put across. And I just think, you know, if you can have the time to remember and reflect on Tuesday, which I know a lot of people will still do, schools do it, works do it, everybody does it. You know, they have that 2-minute silence where we pay our respects to people that have served within the armed forces and people that are still serving now. But what people tend to forget is what happens to them when they leave. What happens to these people? Now, there are laws to protect them from becoming homeless. And there are regulations that are supposed to be put in place to prevent that from happening. But there are still going to be those few people who leave the armed forces and slip through the cracks. Just like with many people in life. And I just feel that now this Section 21 law has come into play or coming into play where you are no longer allowed to Section 21 somebody who's renting your property. It's too little too late. Because just like with myself, it has enabled landlords to say, okay, that law doesn't come in till such and such a day. As long as we Section 21 the people living in our house before then, it doesn't affect us. So at the moment, I'm not living on the streets. I've been advised by the council and by a charitable organisation who are supporting me, and I've even looked online on the shelter website, and it clearly states a Section 21 is not legal binding. You are not forced, and your landlord cannot force you out of the property with a Section 21. If you choose to leave, that is your decision, but then you are intentionally making yourself homeless, which is something I don't want to do. I did that last time in 2012 and I didn't realise, so I don't want to be stupid and do it again. But they basically have to take me to court to kick me out. So I'm seriously going to be digging my heels in. I'm going to try really hard to empty the property, get rid of what I don't need, donate a lot of my stuff to charity, because let's face it, people have not got the money to buy stuff nowadays. So there's no point me wasting the next 5 weeks of my life trying to list things on eBay or Marketplace on Facebook. So yes, I'm having to put myself in that situation mentally, saying, if I had somebody outside right now trying to kill me, or I was in the Ukraine and I could see the Russians heading towards my house with rifles, what would I take with me? And people have asked me that question all the time. If you could only take so much stuff with you, what would you take with you? And the first thing I say is my children. Not clothes, not food, not my passport, not my driver's license, not my birth certificate. Even if I didn't have shoes on my feet, the first thing I would do is pick up my kids and run. And that is the answer that I have given the council time and time again. You're not just going to be making me homeless, you're going to be making my children homeless too. And you're saying that you cannot rehouse me. And yet there's my landlord with her rose-tinted glasses saying, oh, well, you're not my problem anymore. Get the council to give you somewhere to live. So I don't really know what else to say, to be honest. I guess thank you for listening. It's very much appreciated. I've tried so hard around this time of the year to do something to remember those that have fallen, to remember those that have served in our armed forces or are still serving in the armed forces today. On YouTube, I've done videos in the past. I've talked about the Gurkhas who were given the keys to the town, to the city, for Nuneaton, because we had Joanna Lumley. She came to Nuneaton one year, and we had this monument put in Riversley Park in memory of the Gurkhas and what they'd done and how important they are to Nuneaton and Bedworth. And, you know, we've got so many things like that in my hometown that people tend to just walk past. And it's only this week that they will take notice and maybe take the time to see what they really are, or read the names of all the people that are on the monuments or in the war graves that we've got. And I know last year my friend, she did something to like a tribute to all of the people that were buried in Nuneaton and had Polish war graves in memory of her family. And being of Polish descent myself, I found that so special and so moving. And I even said to myself, this is something I will try and do for Remembrance Sunday for 2025. And sadly, I haven't been able to do that due to unforeseen circumstances that have took place over the year. So I am a little bit angry and sad at myself that I've had to focus more on trying to find somewhere to live than remembering those people that time kind of forgets, as this is the only week out of every year that anyone would ever really remember them or pay respect to them. So in a way, I feel really guilty about that. But at the same time, you know, they laid down their lives hoping to make the world a better place. And to hear somebody say that hasn't happened in the 100 years that he has lived and surviving the Second World War, that he is not happy with society and the way that we are. It's just sad. It's really, really sad. And it's so true. It is so true that as a species, we just haven't learned. Anyway, thank you for listening. It's very much appreciated. I'm sorry if I've not commented. I don't know how to do it on my phone. So if you can and are wishing to do a 2-minute silence on the 11th of November, which this year is on a Tuesday, please feel free to do so. If you want to leave any comments, please do so as well. That would be very much appreciated. I will try before the end of the year, if I can, to do something. I just feel really guilty that I haven't. I've just kind of let life slip away, I guess. With being so sick this year, I just haven't had time to process or do anything else that I would have wanted to have achieved. And one of those things being a tribute to Remembrance Day. So take care of you all. Be safe, be well, be happy. And if you are suffering with mental health or an illness or disability, don't suffer in silence. Please get help. I know it's going to be really, really hard to get help. Trust me on that one, I know. But there is help out there. Who knows? Maybe it'll be that person living next door to you who might be able to offer you a cup of tea and a chat over the fence. Or a complete stranger that you just happen to connect with one day when you're, I don't know, at the local market, say, for example. So take care of you, and thank you again for watching. Good night.